Hi, this is Everett. Everett's Watercolors. Welcome to my classroom. And I'm broadcasting live today. And I've been thinking about today as before I started the broadcast. I have been broadcasting since November 2021. And I come on every Thursday at 2 o'clock. And I've been doing that every week since November of last year. And I've been posting all my videos on my website, www.everettswatercolors.com. And you go on my website and go to the classroom videos section on the navigation on my main page, and it'll take you right to the videos. And you can go back and look at all my former broadcasts. And there's some good ones on there. I'm really proud of the coverage we have and so forth. Today I'm broadcasting again live, and I'm in the studio today with my wife, Gloria.
Hello.
And she's going to monitor the broadcast and also the chat room. And welcome aboard to all those that are watching. And just a reminder, go ahead and help me subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're watching on YouTube, and give me a thumbs up. And if you're watching on Facebook, I have a Facebook page on there called Everett's Watercolors, and I'll put the links in the comments below, in the description below, so you can find me again. But go to my website, go to Facebook, and also go to YouTube. I'll have all the links in the description below. Now today I'm going to do something I really was looking forward to. As an artist, I always are looking for interesting subject matter, and that's one of the main goals of an artist, is to find something interesting and something you like to paint. Well, I did a little outdoor sketch of a scene in Locks Point Park, and I thought about today that it's all about shadows and light, and I put down for beginners. But this video can be for any artist. I hope a lot of you have been painting, can also get something out of this. Even though I'm painting, I always learn something on every painting that I do. So I'm looking forward to showing you today a little bit more about this particular. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take you I've got a small video clip, about 20 seconds, and I'm going to this will be like an interview or a preview to what I'm going to show. Okay. Now the point there is that when you're looking at a subject, and that the lighting on that particular area really caught my attention. I was sitting there and I was going to do a small painting sketch. I was going to capture some of the trees, some of the elements there at the park. But then I saw that path of light coming through and hitting that particular area, and I said, "Wow, that is going to be something." So that's just something an artist should always be aware of when you're out walking, or you're out doing something else, and if your eye catches something, take a picture of it, or make a quick sketch, or whatever. But those are the things that get you started, and that's the motivation you need to do a painting. So today I'm going to take that small little scene there, and I showed you the zoom in. I'll talk to you about that. You may have a picture that has, landscape like I was started out, but you want to zoom in to the actual area that you're going to do the painting. So let me take you over to my paint table, and let me discuss that. And let's see, I'm going to take the overhead camera first. I'm going to my overhead camera. Okay, let me show you my setup here. The paints I'm going to use today, here today is lemon yellow, yellow ochre, I'm going to move the mic over here. Lemon yellow, yellow ochre. This is ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, and green number 1. And I hope there's no confusion factor, but I usually do a little mixing chart when I do my presentations. For example, when I mix the yellow ochre with the yellow lemon, this is the mixture right here. And I mixed yellow ochre with burnt sienna. This is the mixture right here. And now green number 1, I mix it with yellow lemon, and green number 1 mixed with yellow ochre. It gives me some different colors of green. And of course, cobalt blue, when I mix with burnt sienna, gives me a dark brown. And cobalt blue mixed with the green number 1 gives me a darker green. And down here at burnt sienna, it's just the burnt sienna. And down here, I got a little bit of Payne's gray. Payne's gray also will come into my painting today, just to add a little more darkness, and also it dulls down some of the colors. When you have a bright color like yellow or greens or even the browns, the burnt sienna kind of tones it down. That's why I use Payne's gray. Excuse me. Now the 3 brushes I'm going to use the Holbein synthetic brushes, which are on my website. I'm going to use the 3/4 inch flat, which is a nice synthetic brush. Then I'm going to use the 1/2 inch flat synthetic. And then I'm going to use the number 16 round, which is a synthetic brush, but it comes to a fine point and it holds a lot of water. So those are the 3 brushes I'm going to use today in my palette. All right, I'm going to take you now. I'm going to move you over to my close-up camera. Now, what I've done, I've got my second camera here, and I've got it set for close-up shots. So I'm going to try, this is something new today, I'm going to try out to get a little more definition. So that's the picture that I had that I used for today's painting. And you can see here, number 1, I was attracted by the light and the darks, the dark shadows behind and the light shadow shining from the sunlight. And of course the light across the water, the light across the ground here, this path of light, and then the dark shadows from the trees that's behind the sun. So this is what really attracted my attention. So this is what I'm talking about when as an artist myself, when I go out and look around, I try to find something that I'm interested in, and that's something that attracts me. And every time I can find an area that's got a dark and a light contrast, that to me is a winner. So I'm going to paint this little scene here today. Now, first step I did this on location. I did the sketch on location in pencil. And you can see here, I captured the dark area behind, and I captured the light areas, and then, of course, the shadow pattern across the ground. So this is my design plan that I had for today's painting. Now, I've gone ahead and sketched this on. I'm going to do this in 3 phases. This will be phase 1. I'm going to do the light colors first, and then I'm going to move on and do the dark colors. So let me take it back to the main camera again. Excuse me, to the overhead. So let me do some mix-up of some of my paints here. I'm going to start out with the light colors. So I'm going to use lemon yellow. We'll mix up a little puddle here with lemon yellow in. I'm going to mix in some yellow ochre. The reason I show the overhead camera, I think everyone likes to see the palette in action. I always feel like I feel cheated if I don't see the artist moving the paint around the palette and making the mixtures and so forth. So that's why I want to make sure you see this in overhead camera. So I do 3 colors, and I'm going to use a little green number 1. Green number 1 down at the bottom. Okay. All right, those are my light colors, and I'm going to leave this brush right here. And I'm going to start out. Now I showed you the mixture. Now I'm going to take you back over to the close-up. So I wanted to show that on the other camera so you can see the mixtures. But now I'm going to go ahead and do the actual painting on the actual sketch here. So I've got the sketch here of the picture I showed you earlier. And I'm going to go ahead and put in some of the light colors. And I'm using the number 16 round. The number 16 round synthetic brush. So these are the light colors. This is a little bit of yellow ochre and mixed in with a little bit of lemon yellow. Okay. Okay, so I put in the light colors here on the fence because the fence has some shadows on it, but right now that's the most important area I want to show. Now, let me change brushes. I'm going to use the 3/4 inch flat. And I'm going to start putting in some of the other. I'm going to put in the green mixture, green number 1, a little bit of yellow mixed in with it. I'm going to put that back here. I'll go around this fence line. And then for that light shining through from the sun, I'm going to put a little bit of lemon yellow and maybe leave some white paper showing right now. Just put the color there. A little bit more green over here in the shadow. So these are the light colors. I'm just getting the light colors down here to get started. And down here a little bit here in the foreground, a little bit of yellow ochre maybe to show a little bit of some leaves on the ground and a little bit of dirt showing here. And I can use a dry brush stroke down here just to get some color on the paper. Oh, let me pick up a little more of the yellow. So really, I'm emphasizing here. I'll put a little bit more yellow in here just to impact the sunlight. So basically that's the light layer. Now I can use the side of the brush here to show a little texture, maybe grass and things like that. But I'm not going to do much more than that. So that's the light layer of the painting. Just to capture where the sunlight's coming through. Now I'm going to move over to the second phase here. The camera to focus on me. One down. There we go. Okay. So the second phase here, I've got this. This is a dried one. I did this a little bit earlier, but the same thing. I put in the light colors. Now I'm going to start adding the darks. So let me go over to the red camera. Now I'm going to mix up the darks. So I'm going to bring in a little bit of Ultramarine Blue. Ultramarine Blue. And I'm going to bring it. I'm going to mix that in with a little bit of the green number 1. Maybe a little bit of burnt sienna, because I need to be really dark for the background. And get a little more green in there. A little more green. Then go back and get a little more blue. Now maybe pick up a little bit of Payne's gray, just to make sure I got a nice dark mixture. Okay. Now let me take it back to the painting. So I'm going to take the 3/4 inch flat brush, and I'm going to put in the darks. So back here, in this area, is all dark. So I got a mixture here of ultramarine, green number 1, mixed in with a little bit of burnt sienna, and even some Payne's gray in there. What I'm doing now is just getting a nice dark color here in the background. This is all shadow. And if you can recall from the photograph, this was the dark background. That's what I like. if you can find a place that's got a dark background and you have a light area that you want to show, a highlight, like shown here on this post, then you've got a winner. This is a good start of a good composition with lots of interest. Now, as I come around here, I'll be very careful. Now, I'm going to paint around the fence post, but I can use the edge of the brush stroke here, and just very carefully carve that out. And you can see immediately how this fence line shows up against that dark. And I can turn the brush around and get the edge of the brush to give me a nice sharp edge. And I'm following the drawing I have here that I put down on the paper. I'm following my design. So I'm taking my time here. I want you to see some brush strokes. I want you to see a little bit of the colors. I mixed the colors. You saw the mixtures. I'm just pulling them off the palette. This is a little bit more of the green. A little bit of green, but I don't want to. That's not the most important part of the story. The story was to get this dark against the light. And there's a little bit of end of the fence post of the rail. This is another one. I did a painting earlier about the trees, which had a rail also. I'm fascinated over these rails. I love these rail fences because they have an interesting shape, and I like to paint around them. I was raised on a farm, and I lived on a farm for over 18 years, or actually 17 years, and there were a lot of old fence posts and so forth on the farm. So a lot of this brings back a lot of memories. So I picked subjects that I enjoy looking at and painting, but also to bring back some memories and bring back a little bit of nostalgia. I just like fence posts. We used to have a barn with some horses in the barn and some fence posts. So it brings back a lot of memory. And I'm using the side of the brush now to give me a little bit of hints of maybe grass there in the background. It was a lot of grass. Okay, I've done this part of the painting already, but I'm going to go through the steps here so you can see how I painted it before we get to that. So for all artists, again, I went over the fact of choose a subject that you're interested in, but also choose one that you can paint, and have a good reason for painting it. This one here was to capture the sharp contrast between the light and dark of the sun against this fence post, and you can see already there's going to be a lot of contrast here as far as this design. I think, well, before I leave this, though, let me pick up, I'll pick up the half-inch brush, and let me put I'm going to put a little bit of definition in here. So I'm mixing up a little bit of burnt sienna, and let's see, a little bit of burnt sienna. And it's a light value. So this area back here. So I'm going to cover this area here. It's in shadow, but you can still see the fence rail. So this area here will be in shadow. So I'm putting a light mixture of burnt sienna. It's mixed in with the cobalt blue, but it's a light brown, to show it in shadow. Okay, now another area that's lighter, about the same value, is the shadow side of this fence post. So I'll put that in. I put that in also. Okay. So these are some of the preliminary things I did on this final painting I'm going to show you. And then I'll take the number 16 round And I'm putting a little bit of that burnt sienna in there. And I'm going to go in here with a 16 round with a sharp point, and I'm going to put in a little shadow pattern here inside the post. There's this little hole here, this little notch that the and also use the same brush. I'm using the same brush. I'm using the same number 16 round. I'm going to put a little shadow on this this little extension here. This little part that comes out on the other side. It's because there's no hardware on these fences. They're all they are is rails that run through holes, and that's how they're constructed. Okay. Then believe it or not, there's a little cast shadow right here from that little. And I'll put that in, okay? Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this to the next level. This is just, I put in the darks, which were the background darks, and then I put in a shadow pattern on the fence post, okay? So that was really stage 2. So now I'm going to bring you over, and I'm going to put the next stage. Ooh. Putting this aside. Let me show you what I did here. I took a photograph. Oh man, let me put before I get ahead of myself. Let me bring the other painting on before I go to that. Okay, so let me go back over here, overhead. Okay, and I've got to move the. Let's see. Overhead. I give more room on that. I'm moving the camera so you can see what's on there. Okay, there we go. Okay, all right. So this is the painting as it currently stands. I showed you some of the steps I did. I did the background and I did the shadow pattern. I did the foreground in light colors, and then I did the background and I put the shadow pattern on the thing. Well, this is what the painting looks like at this point here. Okay. There's a nice close-up right now of what it looks like. Now I've done a couple other things here. I put in some masking fluid here in the grass, which I'm going to take off after I put some more darks in here, and then I can eliminate some of that also. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to put in the shadow pattern. And here's what I did first. Let me tell you how I approached this. I took a photograph. There's the third stage. This is the third stage. Or actually after the second stage, excuse me. This is stage number 2. So I took a picture of stage number 2, which is right here. Took a photograph on regular printer paper, and then I went ahead and I planned out the shadow pattern. And so I just used the regular paper. You can use watercolor over top of regular paper. It works fine. So I designed my shadow pattern on here, and that's what I'm going to paint now. I'm going to paint the shadow pattern. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up a little bit of shadow color, and it's not much different than what I have here. It's going to be dark. I'll put a little bit of Ultramarine Blue, a little bit of burnt sienna. Actually, the shadow pattern is going to be the same colors I used for the background. A little bit of green number 1 in there, and a touch of Payne's gray, just a touch of Payne's gray to get darken it up. Okay, I'm gonna test that out to make sure it's dark enough and thick enough. Okay, all right, happy with that. All right, so my shadow patterns, I'm going to go ahead and put in. I've decided I want to go across here and knock down some of these whites or light areas. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to put a nice shadow right across here and darken this area up. And have a few. I'm using the edge and corner of the brush, and I'm going to put some little bit of dark areas for showing grass in shadow. That breaks up that straight line. I don't want to have a straight line there, so I want to have it broken up a little bit. So the edges of painting is very important. That's probably the edges tell you what, give you a little bit of description of what you're looking at. Now there's a dark shadow over here. There's a cast shadow from this post on the ground, so I'm going to put that in. And I'm not being shy with how dark it is. I want this to really be a dark color on the ground. As a matter of fact, I may take a little bit off. If you want to, if the color goes down and you're not too happy with it, the next thing to do is maybe take a tissue and take a little bit of it off. Take a little bit of the intensity off. That's what I'm doing right now. Just lowering the intensity a little bit of that shadow. Get a little bit carried away with that, with the, I'll put a little more water in there. Lighten it up just a slight. Okay. Then I'm going to come across here with another shadow across here. And there's going to be a big shadow, a big shadow. This goes all the way down. I've got some masking fluid in here too. So the masking fluid will show some of the colors already when I take it off. So I'll have to go back and rearrange some of that. What I mean by rearrange, go back and modify some of that masking fluid. But here I want the background or the shadow pattern to be dark down here at the bottom. Because in the photograph it was dark, and in order to give me a nice contrast, you have to put the darks in. The darks against the lights give you the contrast. I'll leave a little bit of that white paper showing because I may want to cover it up a little bit here when I take off the masking fluid. But right now, we'll leave it alone. We'll check it out here in a few minutes. Okay. All right, now I'm gonna get the blow dryer to dry that down. Okay, now before I take the masking fluid off, make sure it's dry. The thing about masking fluid is you'll make sure that the paint is dry, because then it'll tear the paper. So now I've got the rubber cement pickup now that I'm using to take off, and I used Incredible White Mask for my masking fluid. It comes in a little 2-ounce bottle, and I put that on with synthetic brush and just water. And then I use the rubber cement pickup here to pick it up. Now, those supplies are on my website, everestwatercolors.com. So I'm taking off the masking fluid, where I put the masking fluid here to show a little bit of grass structure down here, and I might knock them out a little bit more once I take it all off. And you feel the paper with your other hand. You'll feel the masking fluid under there, and then go back and rub some more. Getting a good workout here on taking the masking fluid off. Now double check it, everything, checking the edges. Okay, all right. Okay, now I'm going to go back and clean up some of the things here and make it a little bit darker in some areas, a little bit, cover up some of those whites some more. So what I'll do is I'll take the 3/4 inch brush. I'm going to take a little bit of green, because a bit of green mixed in a little bit of burnt sienna, just to give me a dull green. And load the 3/4 brush. And I'm going to go back in, and I'm going to add a little more pigment back here. Knock down some of the white. I want a little bit of white showing, but I don't want a lot. And that's really up. This is really up to the each individual artist. You know, how much do you want to cover up? How much do you want to leave showing? But I think it's a good idea to have just a little highlights across the top of the grass, which shows a little bit of the sun shining a little bit on that. But you don't want to have too much going back in that area. I want your eye to go here rather than along somewhere else. Okay. And back here behind this fence post, knock off some of these, just a few. I'm going to leave some of those nice white, because they're highlights. They're little highlights that show up on the grass. That makes it more interesting. Instead of having it all dark, you want to have some highlights showing some of the grass is tall, pops up out of the way. And I'm darkening up a little bit underneath this fence here, a little bit, just darkening up some of that. When your watercolor dries, it dries a little bit lighter. So it depends on how much water you have in your paints. If you have a lot of water, then the watercolor will dry a lot lighter. If you have less water in your brush, it'll dry darker. So you just have to go back and adjust the edges. Sometimes some edges will be soft, some edges will be hard. So you want to. I'm checking edges now to make it a little more interesting. I don't want to have too many hard edges. So I'm softening up some of the edges just to make them a little bit less. I want to make them more organic with the grass here, an organic look, which would have a little bit of texture. You don't want to have too many hard edges. You have a lot of soft edges. I think soft edges really are just as important as the hard edges. The hard edges are fine. The hard edges will attract your eye, but the soft edges is what allows you to go through the painting. Let your eye movement go through the painting. I'm gonna knock down some of these, a little bit of these. There's some texture down here, which is nice. Okay. Now let's see. I think what I'll do now on the outside edges, I don't need as much over here. So I'm gonna knock this down a little bit over here. That one main area here is going to be lighter, and then it gets a little bit duller over here as you go off the painting. So knocking off the edges a little bit, so they aren't as defined. So I want the eye to come right into that post with the light shining on it. That's my story. Okay. All right. I'm going to put a mat around that. I think see if we can call that one down. Now, what I do is I put a mat around a painting to check the final product, but also to see if there's anything I want to make changes to. So I'm going to have to move this aside. Let's see if this light makes any difference there. Okay. All right, let's turn that overhead light when it's got a glare on there. Okay. Okay. Okay, my perspective, I think the light may be shining a little bit light down here in the foreground, but so far, I've got, what I have you do is your eye is going to come into the painting. This area here is a focal point right here. Right here. That's the focal point where the light coming through. This darker area down here, it could be a little darker in this section here, but I think I'm going to let it sit overnight before I do any more. I may make a few modifications to it, and mainly I might make it a little bit darker here in the foreground. But I'm going to call that a finished painting today. So let me take you back to, well, you know what? I got a little more time. Let me try to fix it right now. This is not a fix, but this is something I saw that I see. I think I'm going to put a little more pigment here in the foreground. So I'm going this green mixed in with a ultramarine blue with a hint of Payne's gray. I'm gonna darken this area up here because I think it needs to be a lot dark. Another layer of dark paint down here, because this was all in shadow. So this will take it down another layer. I put one layer on and I dried it with the hair dryer, and now I'm putting a second darker layer on. And I think it needs it. I think it needs a little more contrast down here in the foreground to take the eye back into the painting. I think one of the things that most and I have the same problem is that you don't want to make any bold moves because you work so hard on the painting. You don't want to make, but you have to make some decisions on where you want to go with the painting. In this case, I think a darker foreground here will make this painting a lot better. Let me turn this light off. Okay. And I think some of these whites up here are also taking my attention away. So I'm gonna knock down some of these whites. They can still show up as a lighter area, but I don't want them to be so bright that they take away from the main area. The main area is around that post. Okay, I think I'm going to stop there. I may even put another layer on, but I think right now that's dark enough at this point. But it does show that the pattern of light coming across here, and I could simplify that even more. Knock this down a little bit here. Maybe knock this one down here just slightly, and leave just one major path of light going into the post. I'll tilt just a little bit. I got my lights coming down shining, but I think you can see a little better if I tilt just a little bit. You can see now the dark shadow pattern and the light coming in on the post itself.
You have a comment? It looks so good.
Well, it looks a lot different here in the studio, and it always looks different on film. And even when you take a photograph of a painting, it looks different. So it just depends on the surroundings, depends on how you view it, and it's best. At this point, it's best to leave a painting, put it aside for a day, then come back to it fresh the next day or the next couple days, and then make your final corrections. I can add some more darks in here, knock down a little bit more, but I really think I accomplished what I wanted to do, was capture that contrast of the light and the shadow pattern, and that was really the focal point of today's lesson. So let's go back to my main camera. Okay, I was really having a little bit of fun there. But this is what happens when you're doing a painting. You'll make changes, and you'll look at it, and you'll make more changes, and you keep making changes to a painting. You could stay here all day long making changes. So at some point you want to stop, let it dry, get away from it for a while, because what happens is when you're working on a painting, you're so used to it and you're so familiar with it that you really sometimes you miss the bubble. You really maybe have another person take a look at it, get a second opinion, turn it upside down, look at it in a mirror. There's all kinds of ways to look at a painting after you're finished to make any final corrections. So this was a good lesson for every artist that I know, that I've seen, that I've taught, all for a beginner, showing how to do a shadow pattern, how to put in lights and darks. But also, it's important also how do you configure and finalize the painting itself. Sometimes the painting is never finished. You can work on a painting for a long time. So I want to invite everybody to subscribe to my YouTube channel and to Facebook, and I'll have the links below for you to see that, and also to go to my website and look at all the supplies I have, and you can also look at all the previous videos I have. So, and also invite your friends to come and watch. I would appreciate that. I've been on here since November, and the little group is starting to grow, and I'd like to see more. And appreciate everyone that has been watching, and appreciate any comments you can give me for any future programs.
And try this painting and post it. You'll have fun.
Yeah, you can try this painting. This painting is simple enough. It's very simple. From the photograph, you can draw a simple sketch, and then try the two stages I did of the light foreground, and then do a dark background, and then you can go in and do the final touches, the shadow pattern, and then maybe add in some detail of the grass and so forth, and then you can post it on my Facebook page, which I'll have a link below, and you can share it with your friends and share it with those that are on Facebook. So I appreciate you all watching and showing up today, and I'll be back again this week on Thursday at 2 o'clock. Bye.